All right, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, UFC 299 takes place this Saturday, and I'm here to give my picks and a brief preview for every single fight on the card. We will start with the first fight of the night and work our way up, and as usual, I try to go through some of the earlier fights a little bit faster so we can spend more time on the main event, the co-main event, and things like that. But that being said, though, this is a pretty stacked card, okay? So it might go a little bit longer than usual. So let us get started right away with the first fight of the night, which is Joanne Wood versus Marina Moroz. I'm going to be going with Marina Moroz here. Few things I'm going to be looking at. Joanne Calderwood's coming up on 40 pretty quickly, okay? And since 2020, she's gone 2-4, which is not great, right? Her last win was about a year ago, and it was a split decision victory over Luana Carolina, who, with all due respect, is not that good, okay? But also, Joanne Calderwood has been subbed quite a few times, and she doesn't really have finishing ability on the feet to get the kind of respect from Marina Moroz for her to stop shooting takedowns and things like that, right? Joanne Calderwood, on her record, it shows she's got 5 knockouts / TKOs. One of those was in the UFC. That's all the way back in 2016. All of them come pre-UFC. So against UFC level competition, she doesn't really get a whole lot of finishes, and I don't think she's going to be able to get one here. So I'm going to go with Marina Moroz to get the job done by submission, maybe late round 2 or round 3. Moving up the card, 2, CJ Vergara versus ALMABAEV. Okay, I'm going to be going with ALMABAEV here. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. I will say this, Vergara could potentially be a live dog, but I don't think so. Okay, he's got a lot more UFC experience, record of 2-3 in the UFC. He's got 1 finish. We have seen him get subbed, though, by the likes of Tatsuro Taira, who, to be fair, is a very strong individual at that weight class. But ALMABAEV's main mode of attack is also submission, so he's going to be a very adept grappler. Okay, Vergara doesn't necessarily have enough stopping power on the feet either, much like the fight previous, that I think he's going to be able to get a whole lot of respect from ALMABAEV on the feet to keep him off of him, right? But that being said, some of the reasons maybe Vergara could be a live dog, ALMABAEV is very small, okay? He is 5'4" with a 65-inch reach. That is like... He's very small. Do you know what I mean? We're Henry Cejudo levels here. So that gives Vergara a decent size advantage in terms of height and reach. And Vergara is not that big of a guy either. Like, he is a very small man, okay? But ALMABAEV was able to come in on his debut, get a strangle against O'Day Osborne, which is impressive. That's a pretty strong debut opponent, and he got that done in the second round there, whereas Vergara took him to a decision. Based on that, what we've seen from these guys, their ability to finish opponents and what have you, I think that I have to go with ALMABAEV. Now, moving up the card, 2, Robelis Despaign versus Josh Parisian. All right, dude, the long-awaited debut of Robelis Despaign. Considering age and weight class, we've got quite a bit of hype on this dude. Okay, the guy's 6'7" with an 87-inch reach, which is the longest reach I believe we've ever seen in the UFC. Even Stefan Struve, the 7-foot-tall monster, had an 84-inch reach, that comparable with John Jones. 87 reach, if I'm not mistaken, is the biggest reach we have ever seen in the UFC. That's a 7'3" wingspan compared to a 6'7" height. That's an 8-inch ape index, 8-inch plus ape index. That's insane, okay? Very decorated in Taekwondo, obviously, which is why we have all this hype around him, and I do believe that he gets the job done here, okay? I'm going to be picking Robelis Despaign to get the job done. Parisian is, you know, borderline morbidly obese, doesn't finish you unless he's got you mounted, oftentimes loses to even more obese men than himself, and just is overall not that impressive. All due respect, of course, okay? He's been knocked out a couple of times, and I think we see him get KO'd here. I think he eats something big, trying to get past a massive 8-inch reach disadvantage, because I would imagine Josh Parisian is going to want to get this fight to the ground at all fucking costs, and I think that he eats something, coming in. I think Robelis Despaign is going to be able to time something quite easily, considering Josh Parisian is not all that athletic, not all that explosive or fast or any of those things. Do you know what I mean? So, Robelis Despaign by knockout. Moving up the card, 2, Michel Pereira versus Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK. I am going to be going with Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK, who I do believe is an underdog, okay? First, Michel Pereira, he's still new to the weight class, and while he had a phenomenal debut at middleweight, it was Andre Petroski, right? Who's just not that good of a striker, and he's also got a hammer and sickle tattoo, which is kind of gross, okay? But also, OLEKSIEHJCZUK, in my opinion, is a much better striker than a guy like Petroski. I think he's a much better striker than a guy like Michel Pereira. Technically speaking, we're talking about fundamentals, right? Michel Pereira throws all this fancy shit. It's fun to watch and what have you, but Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK is very technically sound in his striking, okay? As I said, Michel Pereira, he's a wild man. He could crack. He could fucking get Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK out of there, land a big shot and what have you. But when I look at their finishes, OLEKSIEHJCZUK hasn't been knocked out in about a decade, okay? Also, I think that Michel Pereira's power might be a little bit overrated, right? Especially in comparison to a guy like Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK. Pereira couldn't even knock out Andre Fialho, who has been knocked out like 6 fucking times in the UFC, okay? Whereas OLEKSIEHJCZUK has 6 finishes on the feet in the UFC, and some of those came in the light heavyweight division. So he's not going to be undersized. I don't think Michel Pereira is going to have any strength that he hasn't felt before. I don't think that the power will even be something that Michael OLEKSIEHJCZUK hasn't felt before. And I think that, as I said earlier, he's a lot more technically sound, fundamentally speaking, in terms of striking. And I think that he's going to be able to get the job done against Michel Pereira. I think he's going to pick him apart, leg kicks and what have you, chop the wheels off, right? Michel Pereira's explosive movement, all his crazy shit is going to go out the fucking window. And I think that he's able to get the job done, probably by unanimous decision. But if there is a finish, I believe it'll come, later on, perhaps in the 3rd round or something like that. Moving up the card, 2, CUTELABA versus Philippe Lins. Dude, who fucking knows, okay? Honestly, both these guys are not great. But I think I'm going to go with CUTELABA. I feel like he might hit harder. Okay, and Lins got knocked out by Tanner fucking Boser, which I like Tanner Boser. He's a funny Canadian. Okay, he's from Alberta, and I was hoping that he was going to do well in his career, but that loss, especially a finish loss, has not aged all that well. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to go with CUTELABA. Also, not to mention, dude, Lins' takedowns are not great. So I don't know that he'll be able to just like dictate where the fight takes place if he's having issues on the feet. So I do think that CUTELABA gets the job done, probably by knockout. Now, either way, dude, moving up the card, Pedro Munhoz versus Kyler Phillips. I'm going to be going with the underdog here in Pedro Munhoz. All fucking day, in my opinion. In my opinion, this isn't even a hard fight to pick, dude. Maybe Kyler Phillips will make me eat my fucking words. Okay, maybe he will, but I think he is vastly overrated. I think some of that is in large part due to his relationship with Sean O'Malley. I think in large part is due to the fancy techniques that he tries to implement in a fight that almost never fucking work, okay? Like, in my opinion, he wants to be Sean O'Malley, just without the face tattoos and the dyed hair and what have you, right? But he does all this fancy shit, as I said, and he doesn't really have any finishes that aren't on the ground. Like, he's not putting dudes out with one shot. He's ground and pounding dudes out. We saw Raoni Barcelos hurt him, right, in his last fight. I believe it was his last fight, on more than one occasion. I think his legs are going to get chewed to shit by Pedro Munhoz, whose leg kicks are nasty, and he just constantly throws them nonstop, very low calf kicks. And also, Pedro Munhoz, dude, we got to keep this in mind too. Unbelievably tough. Unbelievably tough. And I would imagine, in my opinion, hits harder than Kyler Phillips, at least in terms of the boxing. If Kyler Phillips lands a head kick, I mean, obviously, but Pedro Munhoz, I think, is going to have the power edge for the most part, considering a lot of Kyler Phillips' fancy kicks don't fucking land. I think he has the toughness advantage, as we've seen Kyler Phillips get dropped by guys like Raoni Barcelos, whereas we've seen Pedro Munhoz eat fucking plenty of shit, stand toe-to-toe in the pocket with Cody Garbrandt, eating shots while putting Cody Garbrandt on his ass. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm honestly kind of blown away that Kyler Phillips is even a favorite here. But whatever, dude. You know what I mean? It is what it is. Make some money if you can, dude. I'm going Pedro Munhoz. I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. Moving up the card, 2, Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos, okay? I'm going to go with RDA here, who is also another underdog, okay? I think that RDA should be able to get this one done, honestly. Nothing Mateusz Gamrot does, in my opinion, is overly impressive, which it doesn't necessarily need to be in order for you to have a successful career in mixed martial arts. You can be a jack of all trades or what have you, but just nothing he does is all that impressive, dude. At least in my opinion, okay? And I actually think that in terms of grappling, when it comes to like submissions and what have you, I think that RDA might even have the fucking edge, okay? Maybe not in the takedown department, but in the actual grappling aspect of it, once the fight hits the mat, I think RDA might have an advantage here. Mateusz Gamrot has no finishes over high-level competition. He struggled badly against Jalen Turner, got completely schooled and vet-checked by Beneil Dariush, and then got a fluky injury win over Rafael Fiziev. Do you know what I mean? His last, and then also, a lot of people thought he should have lost the fight to Arman Tsarukyan, which, if all of those things had gone the opposite direction, if the split decision went to Jalen Turner, if the split decision went to Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot's record would look a whole lot different. We wouldn't even be having this fucking conversation. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know, man. I think RDA is going to be very hard for Mateusz Gamrot to take down. And I also think that, you know, if he were to even get him down, I don't think he gets a whole lot done, dude. Kind of like against Jalen Turner. I know Jalen Turner's a big, long guy, tricky to hold down on the ground, so that was kind of what Mateusz Gamrot was focusing on, was holding Jalen Turner on the mat, but he wasn't able to implement a whole lot of damage or really even advance position to, like, start working for subs and shit like that, right? So, and I would almost even give RDA the edge on the feet, man. I mean, Mateusz Gamrot is pretty technically sound in terms of his striking, but he's not explosive. He's not overly fast. Like, he throws things properly, but it's just nothing's... Dude, I hate it. I feel shitty. Obviously, Mateusz Gamrot's a very skilled individual, but nothing fucking impresses me all that much, dude. And I think that RDA, when he's fighting guys that are relative to his own size, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's some examples of him losing to lightweights, but in the latter part of his career, aside from the Fiziev fight, it seemed like he had more success at lightweight or against lightweight sized competitors than he did at welterweight. But even still, he submitted guys like Brian Barberena. He submitted guys like Neil Magny. He, like, do you know what I mean? He's used to dealing with guys that are bigger and stronger than him, but also at the same time will fight guys that are faster and shit, because down at lightweight, I feel like he has a whole lot much more and much higher quality experience. I feel like he's got way higher quality wins, and I feel like as I said, I don't think there's any aspect of mixed martial arts where Mateusz Gamrot is going to be like overwhelming for Rafael dos Anjos to deal with. I don't know, man, but I think this could potentially look similar to the Beneil Dariush fight for Mateusz Gamrot, where you've got an old dude or a vet, right, who is stopping your takedowns and not letting you do what you want to do, and is piecing you up on the feet. Do you know what I mean? And with all the respect to Beneil Dariush, while he can hit hard, dude's not the most technically sound striker whatsoever, and he was kind of piecing Mateusz Gamrot up on the feet, and was able to, even when Mateusz Gamrot would get in on a good shot and would maybe get the fight to the mat, Beneil Dariush was very good at scrambling out of those positions, and I feel like Rafael dos Anjos, we could see something similar. So I'm going to go with Rafael dos Anjos. I think he gets this one done by decision, and that'll be that, dude. Moving up the card, 2. I'm saying Caitlin Chookagian still, because first of all, nobody's going to know who the fuck she is if I use her new last name. And also, dude, it's harder to pronounce than Chookagian, okay? Which is odd, dude. You got a harder name to pronounce, but either fucking way, dude. Versus Maycee Barber, okay? I'm going to be going with Maycee Barber here, which is insane, dude. If you have listened to my channel for a long time, you will know that I can't stand Maycee Barber, and I don't ever pick her, because I think that she's lost, or I feel like some of her wins should have been losses, and for a very long time, she showed us that her dude, she was just not good. Straight up, point blank period. She was just not good. The UFC tried to push her, but her skills just weren't there. But I feel like we've seen improvements from her, right? Previously, we would see her throwing kicks from 10 feet away from her fucking opponent, as if she's shadow boxing, but you've got a real opponent standing across her. It drove me nuts, dude. Don't throw a kick when it drove me fucking nuts. We see girls like Michelle Waterson do this all the time. But in Maycee Barber's last fight, that seemed to be much, like, that was mitigated. I didn't see a whole lot of that from her, whereas previously, I saw it all the fucking time, okay? I think that Caitlin Chookagian is somebody who, she kind of needs a girl to want to stay at range with her, or at the very least a girl who is not athletic enough to push the pace and, you know, get past her range, so is kind of forced to stay at range with her in order to look good whatsoever, so she can kind of just like pitter patter you apart. It's honestly a little bit like Brandon Royval-ish, just without the forward pressure. Just nothing she really throws hurts her opponents, and it's not like she tries to. She's never fucking sat down on a punch in her life. Do you know what I mean? But I think that Maycee Barber is going to use a whole lot of forward movement. I think she's going to try to pressure Chookagian backwards, get her up against the fence, make her feel uncomfortable, kind of like we saw Jessica Andrade doing, who was just like literally fucking chasing after her until she landed that big body shot. I think that Maycee Barber will probably implement a little bit of grappling as well, pardon me. I think she'll go for some takedowns and shit like that, you know what I mean? She got to finish via ground and pound her last time out. And as I said, dude, as much as I can't stand Maycee Barber, she is very tough. She is game. She does have entertaining fights from time to time. As I said, she seems to have cut out the shadow boxing while she's got an opponent right in front of her. Do you know what I mean? Chookagian's getting a bit older now. She's almost got no finishing ability whatsoever. We've seen her be hurt in, you know, previous fights that are more recent. So I think that, yeah, we could see Maycee Barber get it done. Maybe even a late finish, right? TKO or something along those lines. Moving up the card. 2, Curtis Blaydes versus Jailton Almeida. Fucking hell, dude. I think I'm going to be going with Curtis Blaydes here. Now, on the ground, both of these guys almost showed us, like, Jailton Almeida against Derek Lewis, okay, couldn't do a fucking thing. He couldn't do a thing. He mounted him, and then that was that, right? Whereas we've seen guys strangle Derek Lewis, with all the respect. Fucking Daniel Cormier, dude, 5'9", 300 fucking pounds, subbed Derek Lewis. And Jailton Almeida, this giant monster, like absolute fucking specimen, couldn't do a thing to Derek Lewis on the ground, which is insane to me, okay? Similar criticisms have been levied at Curtis Blaydes when we've seen him against guys like Alexander Volkov, who does not have a whole lot of a ground game, or at the very least he didn't when he fought Curtis Blaydes, and Curtis Blaydes just kind of lays on top of him. I have a feeling that this fight is going to take place mostly at range on the feet. I don't think that Jailton Almeida is going to be able to take down Curtis Blaydes. And I don't think that Curtis Blaydes is going to want to take down Jailton Almeida. Okay? So what I think is going to happen is I think we're going to get a shit striking match between two guys who would typically use grappling. I think it'll be like Jacare, Chris Weidman, which, look, when I say shit striking match, I don't mean it's not going to be entertaining. I mean that, you know, the technique won't be as good, right? That being said, I think that Curtis Blaydes, this might be a hot take, dude. I think Curtis Blaydes is a little bit better on the feet. Or at the very least, I think he's a little more consistent on the feet. Jailton Almeida does this thing where he throws a front kick up the middle. And every fucking time his chin is like extremely exposed. Every time. Right up in the air pretty much. Curtis Blaydes is a giant fucking man. Okay? And while he doesn't have a whole lot of knockouts because he doesn't like to strike a whole lot, he's a giant human who you can knock somebody out when you're that size. You just can. I could see him landing a big overhand right on Jailton Almeida as Almeida's throwing one of those front kicks up the middle. I don't know, man. Because I feel like, here's the even if Jailton Almeida were to get Curtis Blaydes down, after seeing him against Derek Lewis, I don't know that he's going to be able to sub Curtis Blaydes. Do you know what I mean? And if Curtis Blaydes got Almeida down, I don't think Curtis Blaydes is going to want to open up to throw ground and pound at the risk of getting submitted. So, I don't know, man. I think that Curtis Blaydes is going to wait for a counter of Jailton Almeida. I think it'll look similar to the way that he was kind of fighting against Sergey Pavlovich or Derek Lewis right up before he got fucking starched, right? Only that Jailton Almeida doesn't really have that one-shot KO power the same way that Derek Lewis or the same way that a Sergey Pavlovich does. So I think that he'll wait for Jailton Almeida to approach, and I think he's going to try to time some shit. Dude, Curtis Blaydes looked good in those opening rounds against Derek Lewis, or opening round, anyways, before he got fucking put out cold shooting for a takedown, right? He was kind of beating Derek Lewis on the feet, where Derek Lewis is being very patient, waiting for that uppercut. I think we could see something similar. I think Curtis Blaydes will use some leg kicks. I think he's going to wait and try to time one of those front kicks up the middle or something like that. You know, I could be totally fucking off on this one, but after watching Almeida not be able to do a goddamn thing to Derek Lewis on the ground, who does not have a whole lot of grappling ability, it's basically just sheer strength, just stand up, bro. That's the technique he uses, do you know what I mean? Whereas you've got a guy in Curtis Blaydes who is a good wrestler and is a giant fucking human. So I don't know that if you can't do shit to Derek Lewis, why would you be able to do shit to Curtis Blaydes on the ground, where Curtis Blaydes is a lot more comfortable than a guy like Derek Lewis? So I'm going Curtis Blaydes over Jailton Almeida. Moving up the card, 2. Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. All right, bro. I'm going to be trusting in Petr Yan to get this one done. Now, I might be a little bit biased, and it might cloud my judgment a little bit here, but regardless, okay? I think that for Song, Petr Yan will be very hard to take down, as Petr Yan has showed us throughout his entire fucking career. He made Aljamain Sterling fail, 17, 18 takedowns in their first meeting. Even when, in the second fight, Aljo was able to get the back, it wasn't really off of a takedown. It was off of a failed takedown. Petr Yan tried to rush out of the scramble, gave up his back, and Aljo climbed on him. Do you know what I mean? He made Merab fail 30 some odd takedowns, 35 takedowns, whereas we just saw Merab Dvalishvili pick up Henry Cejudo like he was nothing and dump him on his do you know what I mean? Like, his takedown defense is very, very good, and it's against high-level competition. I think that Petr Yan, in terms of striking, is a much more sophisticated striker than Song Yadong is, who does have power, but I think you need a little bit more than power to catch a guy like Petr Yan, because Petr Yan uses feints, switch stances, and all this shit, right? Like, Sean O'Malley heard him briefly in round 2 of their fight. A lot of feints that go along with that, whereas Song Yadong, in my opinion, is not that sophisticated of a striker now. I think that Petr Yan is going to know his back's up against the wall since he's dropped his last 3. I'm hoping that maybe he uses half a round to kind of make reads rather than an entire first round and just give away that first round, because I don't really like that for him, especially when you've only got 3 rounds to work. I'm hoping that he uses, if you think about his losses, 2 out of his last 3 could have easily gone his way. There's a lot of people that are fucking adamant he won the Sean O'Malley fight. There's a lot of people that are adamant, including myself, honestly, that he should have won the second Aljo fight. I thought he did the better work in round 1. But either way, dude, not that it matters. They were both extremely close fights. They both could have gone either way. It's not like he's getting blown out of the fucking water. Obviously, the Merab fight was not great, but still. But as I said, dude, with all due respect, also, I kind of think that Song Yadong has looked good against some good competition, but they're not like the best guys at bantamweight. They're not the cream of the crop. Do you know what I mean? Chris Gutierrez is good. He's not top 5 material. Ricky Simone is good. He's not top 5 material. Marlon Moraes was fucking done at that point, okay? Julio Arce, Casey Kenny, these are not guys that are at the top of the division. These are not guys that, in my opinion, will ever get to the top of the division, with all due respect again. And I mean that seriously. So I don't know, man. I feel like Petr Yan is a massive step up, in competition. I know that Song Yadong faced Corey Sandhagen, but again, he lost that fight. He was competitive, but I don't know, man. As I said, I'm going to trust in Petr Yan to get this one done. I think probably goes to decision. Song Yadong is a very tough guy, but I just think that Petr Yan, you know, he's going to know, I got to fucking do work here. I can't take rounds off. I can't, do you know what I mean? And if not, dude, I hope he goes to one championship, and I feel like Petr Yan could be champion with the rule set over there, okay? Moving up the card, 2. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. All right. I'm torn on this one, honestly. I am going Jack Della Maddalena, but I could see Gilbert Burns doing what he did to the likes of Neil Magny, to the likes of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and whatnot, right? When he implements a very grappling-heavy approach. And especially if Jack Della Maddalena uses the same retarded fucking technique that he used against Basil Hafiz, where he was jumping guillotine more than Dustin Poirier does. Do you know what I mean? I just think that Gilbert Burns, the reason I'm going JDM, I think Gilbert Burns is essentially allergic to jabs, okay? And JDM can fucking crack, and he's got a beautiful jab. Not only does he have a beautiful jab, he's going to follow it up with combinations eventually as well. And he hits hard as shit, and he mixes it up to the head, to the body and whatnot. Gilbert on the feet is a little, he's just got an overhand, right? Essentially, right? He's got a decent left hook, but I mean, big winging shots. He's not like feinting to get his way in. It's not all that sophisticated. It's very exciting to watch, but regardless. But JDM has very crisp boxing. As I said, he mixes it up, goes to the head and to the body. Now, I am concerned that we know he can get controlled, dude. Because even, I would say that was a fight IQ issue more than a skill issue against Basil Hafiz. After the first time, dude, stop jumping fucking guillotine. Do you know what I mean? But he kind of showed us that if he does get there, he can be controlled, which is a bit more of a skill issue rather than a fight IQ issue, because Basil Hafiz was kind of able to keep him down. Not do a whole lot, but was able to keep him down for significant periods of time. But I don't know, man. I think that as long as he doesn't overextend himself when he's striking, which he doesn't usually do, he's very fucking technically sound, never really off balance, never really overextends himself, and he fights behind a jab, I feel like he should be able to avoid getting taken down or giving Gilbert Burns a good opportunity for a takedown. And I could potentially see a finish here, because I feel like he's going to hurt Gilbert with a real stiff jab. And if he uses his brain and he doesn't jump to the ground immediately, lets him back up, I feel like he could hurt him a little bit more, and then eventually get a TKO. Now, Gilbert Burns, in my opinion, is a live dog here. He's not a huge underdog, but he is a live dog, because we have seen him do this to very impressive strikers. like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that fight was in the Apex. Smaller cage, a little bit easier to get to your opponent. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson kind of leaves his lead leg out there for you too, whereas Jack Della Maddalena is a lot more upright. Harder to get in on that leg, but I don't know, man. I'm fucking torn. I could see Gilbert Burns just wrestle fucking him, honestly, but I'm going to go with JDM regardless because I kind of want JDM to win, and I think that in terms of, like, you know, danger on the field, I'm sure JDM, who trains with Craig Jones, is going to be able to defend a choke even if Gilbert Burns gets him there, right? Craig Jones submitted Gilbert Burns in like 45 seconds a while back, but either way, man. JDM, by late TKO, hurts him with a stiff jab. I think he lets him back to his feet, and I think that he continues to hurt him after that and eventually finishes him off. Now, moving up the card, okay? Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. I'm going Kevin Holland, dude. Bro, I have never and will never be. I don't even care if he wins this fight. I have never been on the Michael Venom Page train. No fucking way I'm ever picking him. Even against a guy like Holland, who sometimes leaves a lot to be desired inside the cage. MVP, in my opinion, is so overrated, okay? Yeah, I think he's so overrated. Also, I can't stand him because he thinks that fighters should get fined for trash talk like Colby Covington's to Leon Edwards regarding his dad, but then Michael Venom Page has some of the most disrespectful fucking post-fight celebrations we have seen ever, dude. You cave a guy's skull in, okay, and then you throw a Pokeball at him, right? But Colby Covington should be fined because he said some mean words to Leon Edwards regarding his gangster father. So it's just, it was, I don't like Michael Venom Page, okay? I think we could see him get slept, or at the very least hurt on the feet, and I think that we could see Kevin Holland go for like a Darce or some shit, kind of like he did to Michael Chiesa. Obviously, I'm not comparing Michael Venom Page on the feet to Michael Chiesa, I'm just saying. Bro's only impressive victories, Michael Venom Page that is, are against fucking cans, okay? Every single time he fights good or decent competition, and when I say good or decent competition, I'm talking like an aging, older Paul Daly, or an older Douglas Lima. He either gets slept like he did against Douglas Lima, pardon me, Jesus Christ, or he wins a very close split decision, or in the case of Logan Storley, loses a split decision. Every impressive performance throughout this guy's entire fucking career is against absolute nobodies, okay? After the first loss to Diego Lima, where he got slept, after a controversial decision win, by the way, over Paul Daly, Bellator gave him 5 cans in a row, of which he finished them, right? But then he faces off against Lima again, and what did he lose or win? A very close split decision. He won a very close split decision. But like, they need to give him those cans in between to build him up. And the only time we see finishes, dominant performances, or any of that bullshit is when he's facing a guy like nobody's, okay? But when he fights good competition, he looks like shit. Also, dude, Kevin Holland is a little bit susceptible to leg kicks. Michael Venom Page's stance does not really lend itself to leg kicks, right? He's more karate style. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson doesn't throw a whole lot of leg kicks. Sometimes he'll throw one off the lead leg to the outside of his opponent's southpaw or what have you, but there's not a whole lot of leg kicks, okay? And also, Michael Venom Page, you might be able to draw some comparisons like, oh, well, Kevin Holland didn't do very well against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Kevin Holland has a very similar style to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, so therefore, Michael Venom Page won't look good, or Michael Venom Page should be able to beat Kevin Holland, considering we've seen him face that style, even though, dude, Michael Venom Page is an absolute fucking budget version of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson would school Michael Venom Page. I don't think it would even be close, okay? But either way, dude. When we're talking about records, though, you look at Kevin Holland compared to Michael Venom Page. You know, the win-loss ratio might not be as impressive. He has fought way better competition across 2 weight classes. Guys a hell of a lot bigger than him, right? And guys his size. He's fought at middleweight. He's fought at welterweight. He doesn't say fucking no to a fight. And it's against way better competition consistently. They don't give Kevin Holland 5 cans in a row after he loses Derek Brunson or Marvin Vettori. They throw him right back in there. Do you know what I mean? With good competition. It's just, I don't even think it's comparable, dude. I don't know why. I was never excited for Michael Venom Page to come to the UFC, and I'm still not, except I would hope to see him get knocked out because I hate that he advocates for fines against trash talk, okay? So, I'm going Kevin Holland. I think he could get slept. I think that Michael Venom Page could get slept, rather. But either way, dude, Kevin Holland. I'm not going to pick a method. Moving up the card. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Okay, I just decided today who I was gonna pick on this fight, and I'm picking. Well, I switched my pick. I'm picking Dustin Poirier. Okay, since the fight was announced, I've been leaning Benoit Saint-Denis, but I don't fucking know, dude. So firstly, I feel like this is a massive step up in competition from fighting guys like Thiago Moises, Gabriel Bonfim, or even Matt Favola, right? To start, you're fighting Dustin Poirier, okay? A guy who is a very crafty veteran, who has been fighting at the top of the division for years, right? I think that Dustin is going to be the best striker that Benoit Saint-Denis has faced at lightweight by a fucking long shot, right? Something that I was always thinking about was Benoit Saint-Denis' grappling. I thought, well, we've seen Dustin kind of get, dealt with in the grappling scenarios, or controlled at the very least, right? Like Michael Chandler was able to control him, but then Dustin ended up submitting him. And then you got Charles Oliveira obviously choked him, Khabib obviously choked him, and shit like that. But Benoit Saint-Denis not all that accurate with his takedowns. I think it's about 36% or something like that. So it's not like, if he shoots, he gets it. And if he gets it, you're not getting up, right? It's not like that. Now, he is very aggressive, but I think that that's going to actually play into Dustin Poirier's game. Now, in the Thiago Moises fight, there were moments where, in my opinion, Benoit Saint-Denis got extremely reckless, right, trying to get the finish, and he got tagged with shots that, first of all, you shouldn't be getting tagged with, especially against a guy like Thiago Moises, but also, and I'm not saying that to be disparaging to Thiago Moises, I just mean that his striking is not top-notch, but those shots that are landing against Thiago Moises, if those shots were Dustin Poirier throwing them, do you know what I mean? It's a real fucking problem. So if you're going to get overzealous against a guy like Dustin Poirier, you could find yourself on your ass right fucking quick, okay? Something else to keep in mind is Dustin Poirier has never lost 2 fights in a row throughout his entire career. And in the last 10 years, he's only lost to Conor McGregor, which was at featherweight, Khabib, Oliveira, and most recently Gaethje, obviously, right? And those are like the best lightweights in the world. So I just, the level of competition is not even comparable. So I don't know, man. And also, another thing, dude, this is going to be a southpaw to southpaw. I know Benoit Saint-Denis will switch stances sometimes, but he's primarily southpaw. This is another thing I'm factoring in because Dustin Poirier got really good at facing southpaws through the Conor McGregor camps. A lot of guys, when they are a southpaw and they end up facing another southpaw, it's a little bit tricky because most guys in the gym are going to be orthodox fighters. So you're dealing with guys that are opposite stance most of the time, right? And then all of a sudden you're in there fighting against a natural southpaw who has been fighting like that his entire life, right? Whereas even if you get a guy in the gym to emulate Dustin Poirier, you could bring in southpaws that are natural southpaws, but if you get a guy who's orthodox pretending to be southpaw, there's going to be certain things that he's maybe not as comfortable doing from that position or from that stance that Dustin Poirier is, okay? Dustin Poirier got really, really good at throwing a calf kick to another southpaw. He got really good at defending the calf kicks against southpaws. He got good at defense against southpaws because he was trying to avoid those big shots from Conor McGregor. He got really good with his check left. Dude, all this shit. He is very good against southpaws. You see it. So I don't know if Benoit Saint-Denis is going to come out orthodox and try to throw Dustin Poirier off or what have you. One last thing about this fight, dude. I didn't want to start with this because I feel like this is kind of a shitty reason to pick. I wanted to talk about all the logical reasons that the fight reasons, and then I'll throw this in at the end. It appears that Benoit Saint-Denis has staph infection. Okay, there's a picture that has surfaced of him with a massive fucking boil type thing on his forehead. Who knows if he's diminished, if he's not at full health, if he's on antibiotics. So that I don't know. It's unfortunate, dude, but he does have a massive fucking, sore looking thing on his head. So, if that is the case, if he does have staph, it's not ideal time, right? You're going into the biggest fight of your life, massive step up in competition, and you've got staph infection. Do you know what I mean? So, all that being said, I'm going Dustin Poirier. I think that if we see a finish, it is late in the fight, very late in the fight, 4th, 5th round, but Benoit Saint-Denis tough as nails, right? We saw him against Eliza Zaleki dos Santos, who can crack, who is very, very good and very underrated in my opinion. And Benoit Saint-Denis, that's up a weight class, mind you. Benoit Saint-Denis went the distance with him, and it was his debut opponent. So, I'm not going to say that Dustin Poirier is just going to wash Benoit Saint-Denis. I think this will be a war. And I think that early on, Benoit Saint-Denis will probably have a little bit of success because he is extremely aggressive. And I feel like sometimes veterans of the sport are like not used to that. They think that there's like a mutual agreement. Like we're going to have a little bit of a feeling out process. Then we're going to start going. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that's not going to be the case. Benoit Saint-Denis is going to go all out right away. I think that Dustin Poirier is going to be able to, weather the early storm, and then I think he's going to start to take over slowly as the fight goes on. Moving up the card to the main event, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera. This is another one that I've been a little bit torn on, despite everybody trying to act like this should be the easiest pick of all fucking time. I am going to be picking Sean O'Malley. I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. I don't think we see a finish here. Something that I noticed that I think a lot of people are not willing to admit, and will even argue it, even if they themselves go back and watch the fight, is that the fight between them, the first one, was a lot closer than people are willing to give it credit for. They were pretty even on the feet in terms of strikes, at least statistically speaking. Now, Sean O'Malley's strikes were landing harder, okay, and they sounded harder, right? They sounded nicer. But Chito Vera was landing, and here's the fucking problem, dude. You can have a guy who's blasting body kicks. You can have a guy who's blasting leg kicks that are landing right in the right spot, or slapping with the foot where it sounds like pop, real loud and shit. Problem is, dude, if you're not damaging the guy, or if he's not fazed by it, then who gives a shit, right? Marlon Chito Vera might be one of the hardest guys to damage in the entire sport. So Sean O'Malley can do all that all he wants. He can look good in the opening rounds. He can throw hard kicks and what have you. If Chito just continues to walk him down, then what? Do you know what I mean? You're not really damaging your opponent. If you're chopping away at his legs and he's not showing a limp, or his leg's not bruised or red because the guy's got fucking alligator skin, okay, then do you know what I mean? Whereas Chito Vera, when he lands on Sean O'Malley, there will be an effect, right? Now, Sean O'Malley has showed us that he has a pretty good chin. I'll give him that. Although the only time we've really seen him cracked is by Petr Yan. But that's another thing, dude. Sean O'Malley obviously has looked very good up until this point. His performance against Aljamain Sterling was very good. The first time he fought an adept striker in Petr Yan, he struggled, right? There's a ton of people that thought he should have lost that fight still to this day, right? But the point is that he struggled. He didn't look as dominant in the striking department against Petr Yan as he did against anybody else, right? And Marlon Chito Vera, despite what a lot of people say, being inactive during the fight does not make you a bad striker. Marlon Chito Vera has very good head movement, very clean counters. He hits hard as fuck. He's got good kicks, dude. His leg kicks are nice. He dropped Rob Font with a hook kick, right? Chito is a good striker. People don't want to give him credit for that because his output is not what a guy like Sean O'Malley's is. He's not as flashy as a guy like Sean O'Malley is. He's much more like fundamentally based. But he's a very good striker. I don't care what anybody says. He just is, dude. If you go back and rewatch the Pedro Munoz fight, at first, watching it live, it looked a lot closer to me than it was in reality. Marlon Chito Vera quite clearly won that fight. And it was competitive, but it was not that hard to score, right? It wasn't that close, I guess you could say. And again, dude, he's so fucking hard to damage. Like, it's just, he could crack Sean O'Malley with a big shot, and the way that Sean O'Malley's going to react to it is going to be a lot different than if Sean O'Malley cracks Marlon Chito Vera with a big shot. And I just feel like a lot of people are kind of underestimating Marlon Chito Vera, and I know that he's not a deserving contender, so to speak, but it's the style, right? Like, Sean O'Malley, as I said, every fucking opponent he's fought against, they're not that good in the striking department until he gets to Petr Yan, and then we see a razor-close decision, a razor-close split decision, one in which Sean O'Malley got hurt, dude, right? And credit to him, good recoverability, and Petr Yan is a very, very crafty striker who could also mix in the grappling and shit, which maybe, factored into him being able to land effectively on Sean O'Malley. But Chito Vera is not shit on the feet. He's a better striker than Aljamain Sterling is. He's a better striker than fucking Paiva. He's a better striker than Chris Moutinho. He's a better, you know what I mean, than Thomas Almeida. All these dudes, basically, except for Petr Yan. And Chito's got 5 rounds to land a big shot. Now, something that drives me crazy with Chito, unless he puts you out like Dom Cruz kind of, right? With Rob Font, I feel like he could have finished him like 4 times over, and he just didn't. And even in the Dominic Cruz fight, he dropped him multiple times before the head kick. So that's something that I feel like is factoring into my pick also. Like, it truly is the activity. Chito's a slow starter. Now, something else, though. Sean O'Malley recently, or, you know, in the later part of his career here, has changed his style a lot. When he's fighting a guy like Paiva or Chris Moutinho or what have you, he's very offensive. He's going forward. He's throwing a ton of shit. He's doing all these fucking no-look feints and what have you, right? Even in the first Marlon Chito Vera fight, he was kind of going forward for a bit of it. But later in his career, he's kind of changed that. Like against Aljamain Sterling, perhaps it was just the game plan, knowing he was going against a grappler like Aljamain Sterling. Maybe he wanted to be up against the fence in case there was a takedown. That way it's a lot easier for him to, you can use the fence to help you get back to your feet rather than being in the center of the octagon against a guy who wants to get on your back and fucking strangle you, right? That being, he was a lot more patient. He tries to draw out shit from you and then counter, right? Marlon Chito Vera is not an easy guy to counter. He's got a very tight guard, and he's very disciplined with that guard. He might react to feints a little bit, but not in a way where you're going to be able to like land a head kick on him from feinting a jab or some shit, right? He's very disciplined, and his high guard. He's good at rolling with shots, tough as nails, unbelievably durable skin. He is literally an alligator, okay? So it's not as easy of a fight to pick as a lot of people are giving it credit for. Like, I feel like everybody's just acting like this is a fucking throwaway. Chito's dog shit. And, you know, the first fight you can say was fluky, but it's sure as fuck not a fluke, okay? Marlon Chito Vera threw that leg kick, right? It landed. It may, you know, it may be fluky that it hit the nerve, but it was an intentional kick that landed on the intended target. And that was the result. And also, dude, we've seen guys fight through that. Sean O'Malley didn't need to go for much longer. But once he was on the ground, he had nothing. Do you know what I mean? For Chito. So, there are ways that Marlon Chito Vera could win this fight. And I wouldn't be shocked even a fucking little bit. But that being said, I think that Sean O'Malley's going to keep his distance. I think he's going to pick apart, like, you know, kind of chip away at Chito. I think he's going to leg kicks and jabs and what have you. And I think that because they're in the bigger octagon, right, the first time they were in the Apex, smaller octagon, I think that Chito's going to have a bit of a harder time tracking down Sean O'Malley. I think Sean O'Malley's going to use a lot of lateral movement. He's going to try and, you know, draw shit out from Chito, which is going to be harder to do than I think a lot of people realize. And I think that he's just going to edge the rounds out. I don't think it's going to look like a domination. I don't think Sean O'Malley's going to go out there and fucking starch Chito Vera. I think it's going to be a rather underwhelming performance for those that think Sean O'Malley's just going to walk through him, right? I don't even think it'll be as dominant as the Corey Sandhagen fight. Corey Sandhagen, while there's similarities between him and Sean O'Malley, he does not fight the same, right? And also he did mix up a little bit of grappling and things like that. So it'll be interesting, man. I'm ultra fucking interested. Even if it does end up being like that, where it's like a kind of tit for tat, like just edging out the rounds and what have you. I'm still excited to see it. I don't really care. I think if there's a finish, I think it'll be Chito finishing Sean O'Malley. And I don't think that that's impossible, even a fucking little bit, right? So, with that being said, dude, we did go a little bit longer than usual. I do apologize for that. Like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you with the next video. Bye-bye.